He's desperate, John, but he's not stupid. And he knows that if he were to act on this threat, things would get very rapidly worse for him and Russia.
So, welcome to Drive, Lord McDonald. Simon McDonald, former head of the Foreign Office. Good afternoon to you, Simon.
Good afternoon, John.
Well, tell me then, I mean, are you alarmed that Vladimir Putin might actually press his nuclear button?
In a word, no. I think this was the statement of a statement of desperation. The war has gone as bad as possible for Russia and Putin. He now finds himself having to explain himself to his hardliners, to his army, to his people and his partners. And all of them are unhappy with how things are going for different reasons. This was a very carefully constructed but unconvincing speech, with the final roll of the dice being threatening nuclear conflagration.
Yeah.
And yet, as President Biden just said very clearly, Russia is not under threat. It is impossible to construct a rationale to justify the use of a nuclear device.
Yes, it is true, though, isn't it, Simon, that desperate people act in desperate ways. And we're seeing now Putin also talking about annexing parts of the Donbass territory that part of Ukrainian territory that he very much wants to seize for himself, using sham referendum to give it bogus respectability. But if and when he manages to do that in some of those areas, well, they, in his argument, will be part of Russia. And any threat to them, in his argument, would require a serious response.
Again, it's a contention of desperation. Only people completely devoted to President Putin would agree that the referenda are in any way legitimate.
Sure.
Clearly, they are not. This is a constrained and intimidated and partial electorate. Everybody, the international community, is announcing in advance that it will not accept this sham. He knows that. He's desperate, John, but he's not stupid. And he knows that if he were to act on this threat, things would get very rapidly worse for him and Russia.
What do you think then, Simon, in your view, what would be the right response to this from the British point of view, as a former head of the diplomatic service? Liz Truss seems to be taking the position of unrelenting opposition to Putin, maximum support for Ukraine and other forms of pressure too. Is there any adjustment that you think is necessary in the British policy, or is it just where it needs to be?
I think the government's policy is correct. I think we stand with the United States and European allies against Putin and Russia in this conflict. One of the reasons Putin acted in February was that we failed to act. We failed to be united in response to previous provocations, most particularly Crimea in 2014. This time, we have been much more purposeful. We've got to keep that going through a very difficult winter.
Yeah.
Putin's hope is that the winter will be so difficult that Western resolve will fracture. We have to be prepared for that. We have to prepare our people for that so that we get through to the spring without buckling.
Yes. Now, I wonder, and this is I suppose now, an historic question, but it's still a relevant one. As a country, have we in the United Kingdom been too slow to crack down on the Russian oligarchs, the agents of influence and the enablers in this country who have been serving one way or another Putin and the Kremlin's interests? Because that was certainly the view of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee a little while back, wasn't it?
In a word, yes. We woke up too late. We enabled them for too long, but we have woken up. And our sanctions packages agreed since February are pretty comprehensive, not entirely comprehensive. There is still more work to do, but London is a more difficult place for dirty Russian money.
Okay, now let me get your thoughts while we have you here on some wider aspects of British foreign and overseas policy. Obviously, I'm now thinking about Europe, and the Prime Minister is meeting Ursula von der Leyen in New York City. She's been in contact with Joe Biden, and those two, von der Leyen and President Biden, seem to be pretty much at one that it's up to Britain to do nothing to threaten, well, as they see it, the deal struck on the border in Northern Ireland. Liz Truss has taken a different view, but there is some signs from some people who know what's going on of optimism, reasons that there may just be a break in the clouds. Now, you are on that network, and we don't name your sources, but you talk to people who know what they're talking about. Are you picking up any of that optimism that there may be some sort of breakthrough when it comes to Brexit and Northern Ireland?
Liz Truss is now Prime Minister, so she has more room for manoeuvre than as a candidate for Prime Minister. In Northern Ireland, the British government's role since the Good Friday Agreement and before is to be an honest broker between the communities to serve all the citizens of Northern Ireland. The Northern Ireland Protocol Bill put the British government firmly in one camp only. I think Ms. Truss's government has the chance to recalibrate. I think compromise is necessary. I think the other side sees that it is necessary.
Is it in the air?
And
Do you
they
detect
can pick
compromise?
their way through.
Do you reckon there will be such a compromise?
Yes, but I say yes boldly, meaning I hope so.
Okay. Well, Lord McDonald, good to talk to you as always. Do join us again soon. That's Simon McDonald, former head of the Foreign Office.